Welcome, everybody. I'm Rebecca Winthrop. I am a senior fellow here at Brookings and the director of the Center for Universal Education. It's a real pleasure to be here this morning with all of you talking about a topic that's incredibly important for the world and near and dear to my heart. This is our annual Girls Education Research Symposium. The theme this year is Approaches to Developing Life Skills for Girls. We do this every year, and it's anchored around our incredible visiting scholars that come to Brookings every year with the Echidna Scholars program, who at the moment, we have a cohort of 20 around the world and from 14 countries, and they're, I would say, the major driving force behind the girls' education agenda that we pursue here at the center. All of them, they're all a force to be reckoned with individually, but also collectively, and have really helped shape our focus on what is important around girls' education, and certainly the theme of really thinking about life skills for girls has come up from a number of them, and that's why we chose it. I'm really pleased to welcome two very special folks to the stage to kick us off in our discussions. You have the programs, the fulsome bios, but I'm just going to introduce them very briefly. We'll first welcome Tina Chen to the stage for opening remarks. Tina is the Executive Director of President Obama's Council on Women and Girls, and she is also the Chief of Staff to the First Lady, Michelle Obama, and she is also with her very capable team, the Spirit, making Mrs. Obama's Let Girls Learn initiative happen, and has been a huge ally in this cause in the White House. Then we are very, very pleased to welcome the Honorable Joyce Banda, President of Malawi. She was the first female president of Malawi and the second female president in Africa overall. She has had a very long and prestigious career. She's been foreign minister, she's been vice president of Malawi, and most importantly perhaps for us, near and dear to our heart, Minister of Gender and Child Welfare. She has, over the course of her long career, been a constant and consistent voice for women and girls. And we are very, very grateful for your taking your time today, President Banda, to spend with us. She is here on a visiting, as a distinguished visiting fellow with the Wilson Center and the Center for Global Development doing research on girls' education, and we were able to steal a bit of her time. And the last thing I want to say is just to give a huge thanks to Echidna Giving, which is our longtime partner, not only for the Echidna Scholars program, but for a lot of our girls' education work. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Tina to kick us off.
Well, good morning. Thank you, Rebecca. It is really my pleasure to be here, and especially at Brookings, especially with Rebecca and with everyone from the center and with the Echidna Scholars. It is no exaggeration to say that it is Brookings' work and support, Rebecca's research and support and advice, and the research that all of you, that this seminar annually puts together, that was the informing and foundational work for Let Girls Learn, because back when the First Lady and I started thinking about what can we do internationally, where can we have an impact, what are the most salient issues that need to be addressed out there, it was learning from Rebecca and Brookings and many of you in this room and the work that you all have all done that informed what became Let Girls Learn, and not just for the First Lady, but also for all of our colleagues within the United States government and the Obama administration. administration to make adolescent girls' education such a focal point of the last year and a half of our work. It's also a real honor for me to share the stage with Joyce Banda, who is such a leader and such a champion and remains so, showing us a great model for how to be a former administration as we step into our former roles. So thank you. It's a great honor to be here. And I see lots of folks from USAID and Peace Corps and State Department, all of whom have been part of this whole of government effort called Let Girls Learn for the last year and a half, which the President and Mrs. Obama launched around International Women's Day last year. And in a short time has really taken off. Part of what has fueled the passion that so many of us in the Obama administration share is, as what you all know, is both the research for what happens positively to the world when girls are educated. I've taken to calling it as close to the golden key as we have to unlocking the solutions to global health, to global poverty, to economic opportunity, to peace and security. And you all know that. This is a group that knows that research well. And we also know when we launched Let Girls Learn and we looked at the numbers, we looked at the UNESCO study of 62 million girls. We did a big project that raised a lot of awareness to this issue, not just in the developing world, but here in the United States and in the developed world, because we believe we all need to own these issues. And we wanted boys and girls in the United States to understand what was going on with these girls around the world and to invest in them. And so we last year launched hashtag 62 million girls. I got a lot of attention, but I will say, and many of you in this room were some of the folks who said it to me, pulled me aside and would say, that's not the right number. That's not counting the older girls. And it's odd to say that one of the things you can be happy has happened is that your number grew bigger, but actually it's important to name the problem and understand the full dimensions of the problem in order to solve it. So we have noted the UNESCO study from this year that has now also highlighted the older adolescent girls and given us the data highlighted that it's a total of 130 million girls around the world who are out of school, and that when we count the full range of adolescents, all the way up, through age 19, through their secondary school, that the number is really 98.2 million, not 62, and that is the number. So astonishingly large, each story that's represented in that number, such a loss of talent to the world and to the community and to her family, that we are redoubling our personal commitments and efforts to address those 98.2 million girls. And we really feel that that's part of a global movement, that naming the full range of the problem is part of the global movement that's happened. The work around the SDGs is part of the global movement that is happening, and that all of us here who are education activists sit at a very fulcrum moment where this issue has captured global attention, and we have an opportunity to expand it and grow it even larger. And I think I'm not speaking out of turn for my boss, as we head into the last 40 or so days of our administration, to say that this is an issue she feels deeply about, as do I, and is something the two of us remain committed to working on well past January 20th, 2017. What form that will take, we will continue to work on, but I want to make sure you all know that this is something she wants to see. She sees herself in these girls, as she has said many times, and she sees the promise that is out there, and she is really grateful to all of you. There's so many in this room who have led the way on these solutions and what we can do to take this problem, and the promise of what we can achieve is so great. And the work across civil society, across corporations, the outpouring of support we have seen, even in the short time that we've done Let Girls Learn, has been huge. A recounting, I've been very proud of the work that we've been able to do in just a short period of time. In that year and a half, we've been able to marshal more than $1 billion in U.S. government assistance across 50 countries, and really in some cases leveraging all of our agencies to work together towards a singular goal. goal around adolescent girls' education. We've had nearly 100 private sector partnerships that have come together, ranging, from bangles to bags, we like to say. Alex Ani sold a bangle in support of the Let Girls Learn Fund. The InStyle magazine did designer bags that we sold in support of the Let Girls Learn Fund. The Girl Scouts did a badge around girls' education. Girls Inc. has done projects so that kids in the United States are informed about these kids. We have a $2.5 billion commitment by the World Bank that many of you know about over the next 5 years in education projects. We used all of our bilateral conversations with folks like our allies in Japan and South Korea and the UK to pledge more dollars for adolescent girls' education. And we're particularly proud of our friends at the Peace Corps, Oliva is here, that launched Let Girls Learn and raised $2.7 million for the Let Girls Learn Fund that is now operating in 44 countries. We've already used of that fund $918,000 from the Peace Corps Fund to fund over 330 community-identified and community-led projects to break down the barriers that are keeping adolescent girls from completing their education. And that's where I want to conclude as I lead into, the armchair conversation with President Banda. And that is the other thing that we learned from all of you as we did the work is how important local leadership is, how important it is not just to do the work from grass tops through our multilateral organizations and government to government, but to really invest in the real culture change that needs to happen. Because as the First Lady says so many times, the thing about adolescent girls' education that's different than primary education is that adolescent girls are women, are becoming women, and they, at that moment, become the target of all of the gender discrimination that exists in their culture, exists in our culture, continues to exist around the world, and it manifests itself in so many different ways in different communities, all of which become barriers to young girls and women achieving their full potential. And we know that some of the best ways to change hearts and minds is grassroots, is to get a set of families and parents and communities invested in what's going on with their girls and what are the barriers to their girls completing their education, and that's how we will change hearts and minds. So that's why I'm grateful to the work, the Challenge Fund work our colleagues at USAID and state have done, the Peace Corps work that's really been involving grassroots communities in making those decisions. I'm grateful for Brookings' work leading also the network that is coming together around grassroots education activists and leaders, something we all want to continue to stay invested in as well. And it's through those sets of partnerships and individual advocacy and support for the folks in communities who are doing the real work where I'm really optimistic about the change that we can make, even as various grass tops issues may be less optimistic for folks, because that change is really happening and is unstoppable. And it comes from that set of life skills as you move into your next conversation that we need to develop, not just building more schools or getting more uniforms, all of which is important, but to really investing in these young women, the leadership and the drive and the confidence and support they need to continue to pursue their dreams. One of the things we have had the good fortune to do is to travel with the First Lady and to meet these girls firsthand. One of our most recent trips was to Morocco and Liberia, so a little commercial plug. With CNN made a wonderful film called We Will Rise about that trip, but it's really about the overall issue for girls' education. It aired in October around International Day of the Girl and was like the highest CNN films that they've aired. So they're airing it again this Sunday. So if you missed it on CNN, you'll be able to see Will Rise again this Sunday, and I urge you all to tune in. But what I have seen and what's been so impressive when you meet these girls firsthand is to see in their eyes that fire, no matter what the circumstances. And these are girls who have escaped an early marriage at age 10 and may not even, one young girl from Malawi told us, I may not get 3 meals a day, but I go to school every day. or young women from Cambodia who are getting up at the crack of dawn before the sun rises to make breakfast for their family before they bike an hour to their school that has no walls or floors, but who then say, I want to be a doctor because I want to give back to my community. The young woman in Morocco who became like the first Moroccan auto mechanic from the USAID program that she went through. They have that grit and that drive and the determination, no matter what the challenges or the circumstances they have faced. And how can we leave them behind? How can we not invest in them? How can we not do everything we possibly can to invest in their futures? And the thing is, once we do that, we'll actually be the ultimate beneficiaries of it, because through their work, through becoming a doctor, through becoming an auto mechanic, through becoming an engineer, they will rebuild their communities, that will rebuild their countries, our globe, and will keep moving us forward to really a more peaceful and prosperous world community. So I, again, thank you very much for all the work you all have been doing for many years on this issue, the work you'll do today, and you'll continue. And I want to end as I bring Rebecca back up to the stage. Once again, I cannot thank her and Brookings enough for how much work and support they've given us throughout our 8 years here in Washington. So thank you all very much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. President Banda, it's such a pleasure to have you here. And I want to pick up right where Tina Chen left off when she talked about leadership, women's leadership, and particularly your leadership. You have been yourself an incredible example of a woman leader throughout your entire career. But you're also here in Washington, D.C., studying the topic, particularly around girls' education and how do you lay the strong foundation for long-lasting women's leadership. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing here and about your work and any reflections you have?
First, let me say how very grateful I am to be here, to be given this opportunity. But also to say that what Africa needs is a critical mass of women leaders to partner with our partners like this. It is in forging those smart partnerships that we can yield a lot. In fact, that's what she said. And so therefore, I would like to acknowledge the support that I received from USAID in 1990, because
from USAID?
From USAID, yes.
Okay.
I was saying earlier that it's like an actor. An actress or a musician will say, it is so-and-so who spotted me. I stood up in a meeting in 1989 in Malawi and made a statement when people didn't speak in Malawi. And there was an official of USAID who spotted me and pulled me by the side and said, if you ever need support in the future, here is my card. And that's where this journey started from. And from there, USAID supported me, sent me to Grameen Bank in Bangladesh, in India, supported Institutional Development Fund for us to start an office in Malawi, went all the way to become a politician, a minister, a foreign minister, a vice president, and a president in State House. So all I'm saying is that what we need first is to support the women leaders on the continent. And what is emerging back in Africa is that very young women now are emerging as leaders, and they need support. And they need us to support them, encourage them, mentor them, and build them up to be able to do the kind of work we're talking about here, to partner with you so that we can be able to send as many girls as possible to school. I have found now, and I'm making an argument in my research at the Woodrow Wilson Center, as I research on women's leadership. I am saying leaders are born. There's a lot of debate around this, but now research is showing that only 30% are the traits we find in a person for leadership. And I'm saying, well, fine, even if it is 30%, in Africa we need to look at the environment these girls are in, the support they require. How do we liberate them to be able, for them to be able to bring out their full potential to become leaders? So back to my research. I am at the Center for Global Development, looking at women's leadership, at girls' education. And I am saying the US government has done a lot of commendable work in Malawi. In fact, one of the fellows here is one that is working on curriculum that originated from a project that USAID implemented in Malawi called the Social Mobilization Campaign. I am making a case in my research that there's so much commendable work that has happened already. UNICEF, USAID, and globally, people are investing a lot on the supply side. Encouraging girls to go to school, they must have uniforms, they must have school fees. They must go to schools where there are toilets, and so on. I am focusing on the demand side. I am saying my position is that we must take focus on 0 to 10 years of age. I know that people are focusing on 10 to 14. But as an African woman and as a victim myself, 0 to 10. If we don't support the girl child during that period, and we start at 10 to 14, it's too late. It is too late. The girl child is received differently. The girl child is fed differently, separately, less and last. Therefore, nutrition-wise, stunting, development of the brain, as opposed to the boy child, who in Africa, I will not say they are not fed. They are fed, it is the quality of the food. Because if the boy child is eating with the father, and the girl child is eating with the mother, then the quality of the food is different. Number two, it is deformity. I am a victim myself. It was in 1995 when the doctor told me, I don't know if anybody has told you, but your spine is bent. You must have started carrying heavy stuff when you were too young. How many African women or Indian women are walking about with deformity that they will never know because they started carrying stuff at 5 years old? And that was my situation. Then the third one is defilement, either through harmful traditions or grown men who are told that if they go and sleep with a 5, 6-year-old, they will be cleansed of the HIV virus. That's number 3. Number 4 is child labor. You find that on the estates, tobacco estates, tea estates, in the marketplace, 5, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds are the ones that are going about selling stuff or cutting sugar, tea or tobacco. The final one is harmful traditions. You must have heard lately about the Eric Niva in Malawi, in the cleansing system that we have there, where grown men will be paid to sleep with 9-year-olds, 8-year-olds, to cleanse them. This is happening between 0 and 10. So my position is that, what will this child be like at 10 years old when we begin to focus at this child who has already been scarred? So I am making an appeal, and to leave that on record, that I said I am advocating for attention to be paid to 0 to 10 years of age. And that is the basis of my research at the Center for Global Development.
It's actually very interesting because it's true that a lot of the focus and attention on girls' education globally, certainly at the moment, is on adolescent girls for the very reasons that Tina Chen talked about. But you're saying, look, there's very fundamental things that happen in a girl's life before she becomes an adolescent that will shape her path forward. What is your recommendation to, since we're sitting here in Washington, D.C., what would be your recommendation to sort of the global actors that work on girls' education? What would you want them to do based on your research?
Yeah, what I wanted to say is that they have, in the area of harmful traditions, if it's the rest of Africa, it may be FGM. If it is Ghana, it may be Trokosh, where girls are given up as child slaves. If it is in Cameroon, it is breast ironing, where they iron their breasts with hot rods so that they do to delay their sexuality. If it is in Malawi, it is the cleansing, the hyenas. So there are three main recommendations that I'm making. One is the rights education. There's an organization called Think Equal, and I'm a founding member. The lady who founded that organization's name is Leslie Woodwin. We are recommending for the introduction of the designing of curricula that demands the introduction of rights education from age 3. So by the time the child goes to nursery education, rights education must be introduced at that rate, so that by the time this girl child gets to 9 years old, she knows her rights. Even when you touch her inappropriately, she will know that's wrong. And 117 countries have signed up. We've been working with UNESCO and the UN, and the first schools that have signed up are going to start this rights education in January. And I think the first country that is going to start introducing that curriculum is Sri Lanka, and Botswana just signed up a week ago. Second, I am advocating for laws. We have found that in a country like Ghana, a law was passed in 1998 against this system called Trokosh, where 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 10-year-olds are given as sex slaves to priests just because maybe the family did something wrong. And it's not only Ghana, this is in West Africa, Benin and Togo as well, but Ghana took this brave step and passed a law in 1998. But that's how we have found that it's not easy. Passing a law is the easiest, but domesticating it and enforcing it is the hardest bit. And what they have done since then, when that time were 5,000 victims in the bush, as I'm speaking now, there are 1,200. But it was because of the involvement of the civil society and NGOs that have worked tirelessly. So, like in Malawi, this Eric Niva, who was on BBC, boasting that he had slept with the 108 children, was arrested. Now, as we found out, he has only been sentenced to 2 years because the law may not be appropriate and strong enough. So, to review laws at country level to make sure that the girls are protected. Thirdly, leadership. Women leaders must get involved. Women's networks, because it is about behavior change and mindset change. And for that to happen, we need massive civic education. And that can be done by NGOs. And us, ourselves leaders, we must do this. We must make sure that we do our part. Those of us who can manage, we must open schools, we must build schools. Governments alone will not do it. I set up the Joyce Panda Foundation in 1997 after receiving the Africa Prize for Leadership for the Sustainable End of Hunger. And my prize money was only $50,000. And we've moved from there to touch the lives of 1.3 million people. And one of them is the building of schools. So I believe that investing in women leaders will have a ripple effect, and at the end of the day, the girls shall be protected.
We've talked about this before, but your own personal leadership is a great sort of role model for a whole bunch of people, women and men. And one of the things that I wanted to be sure to share with the audience, because Tina Chen mentioned it, and we've talked about it, President Banda, is that there is this emerging global network of girls' education leaders for women and men. And I think it's important to talk about, men being champions and bringing them in. That's really for working with a range of regional organizations to network with each other regionally and help sort of promote and support women leaders who are working, women and men leaders who are working on girls' education. So that's something to watch out for, and we'll certainly share it with everybody as it comes to real fruition.
Yeah, but it's also important for me to mention that this process, the whole issue of women's empowerment and girls' empowerment, will need our men. Mm-hmm. And in my particular case, as a president in Malawi, I received more support from men than my fellow women. And I was surprised, but men, if we claim that they are part of the problem in the world, then they're part of the solution. So sidelining men and talking to ourselves won't solve the problem. And you find that there are so many out there that are willing to help. In any case, they understand, they get it, that we are the majority, but also we brought the other half into this world. Yeah, so they respect us and they are ready. And in Malawi, in my particular case, I received more support from men than from women. That is so
interesting. Could you tell us, what do you mean more support from men than from women?
Yeah, because case? I don't remember any day when I was undermined by my male officials. If there were negative articles in the newspaper, they were written by women. Not one. I mean, I've got fellow Malawians in here, so they know. They'll tell you. It was fellow women who would castigate me. But I have also got to say that women are facing serious problems. I don't know if you see what I see, but women's leadership is under attack globally. And for a woman to be brave enough now to stand for elected office, it's not easy. So what we have seen in America is happening everywhere. And I'm just so happy that I was here and I saw it happen here, because now I think people have started taking action, especially on fake news that influence voters and people. We need women in leadership because women make better leaders. Nobody can dispute that. We focus more on issues that affect women and children. We are risk takers. We fight corruption. And I say fight corruption because it's not easy. They fight you back. They smear back that onto you. They scandalize you. But I am the first president in Malawi that arrested 72 people for theft. It is not a joke. So when I tell my fellow African leaders to say, we will not succeed, we will not save the little resources we have if we don't fight corruption, they tell me, you fought corruption, where are you? Where are you? You were voted out. Because at the end of the day, they'll push you out, and they don't joke. If they don't kill you, they try to kill me. Malawians are in here, they know. I had a mysterious accident on the road, but I had switched cars. So they went and hit the wrong car, and I'm still here. So what I am saying is that it is not easy. You can go from Australia, look at what happened to Julia Gillard, Thailand, Philippines, Argentina, Brazil, Chile, America. I mean, you can go globally. At least Africa has done better. Yeah, we've had we have had 3 presidents. Now it's Mauritius has a female president. America is still trying. So it's not easy to get women into leadership. And women are being discouraged. And that is the starting point for us to discuss. Because at the end of the day, it affects the work, this work. In Malawi, before I appointed my cabinet, I established what I call the Presidential Initiative for Maternal Health and Safe Motherhood. I will refuse until I die to accept that a woman should die giving life. I shall refuse. But that office, as I'm speaking now, was closed. Because the priorities of a female leader and priorities of a male leader are different. So if we are talking about girls' education, then we must make sure that we build that critical mass globally But I'm talking about Africa of women leaders. So therefore, we must also pay attention about what they are going through. In one country in Africa last year, campaigning for elected office, women were being stripped naked. So this, so we need advocates. You're laughing because it's your, but we need advocates.
Right.
We need to assist women get into leadership in order to focus on issues of women and girls.
And it's true. I have one more question of you, and then I bet you've put a lot on the table that people might have questions about, so we'll turn it over to the audience for a couple of questions. But on your, I mean, we were laughing, women are better leaders, you say, but on the event we had last week where we launched the Global Education Monitoring Report, someone brought up the study that looked across the countries, and countries that have more women in leadership have much better policies towards the environment as well. So, you know, who knows? Maybe it is true. It's not my field of expertise. But one last question for you, President Banda. You're talking about serious things. You can't go home anymore, back to your own country. It's tough being a woman leader. It's tough getting to that position. What in your personal sort of reflection in your own personal life, because this conference is about life skills for girls, what were some of the skills, competencies, things that you found were most important for you personally to keep going and for you to be successful? Your own skills, competencies that helped you.
Well, I believe that all women are managers first, naturally. And so therefore, navigating, we are different leaders, we are different from men. We get into office and they'll tell you that this is supposed to be here. But your instinct tells you, no, I need to shift here, because that's the way it should be. And they'll tell you, no, we know that that's the right thing, but put it back. I don't know if I'm making sense. That we get in and we are determined to do it right, no matter what it costs. We are prepared to make unpopular decisions if we are convinced that this, what I am doing, is right for the people that I serve. Women realize that I am in this position at the pleasure of the people that voted me in. So for you, what is critical is not to keep the position. I must save my votes. If I devalue the currency, I will not get votes next time. You discard all that, you don't care. What you care most is if I do this, it will be for the betterment of the lives of the people that put me here in the first place. So that's women leaders. Number two is women leaders pay more attention to social programs. For me, I cannot go to sleep if there's no water in Malawi as a leader. I cannot sleep if there's not enough food or enough drugs in the hospitals. That's a woman leader. Sometimes a male leader will say, well, but I need to vote, so therefore for me mobilizing and is more important. And I must admit, they gave me a lot of advice. They gave, number one was, don't tackle corruption, cover it up. You are too close to your elections, you will not win. And I told my husband, I said, if the price for me to stay in State House is for me to cover up corruption and not lock them up, then let me get out of State House, because there is life beyond State House. And here I am at Brooklyn. Here I am. It's fine. It's okay.
You also told me when we, in the past when we've met, about the role your parents have had, particularly your father, on encouraging you.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that before, and then we will turn it over to the audience for questions.
Yeah, it's not only me. It's research that is showing that women from China, from UAE, from Africa, interviewed, and it's on internet, interviewed each one of them without fail, would talk about the relationship they had with their father. A father who encouraged them, a father who didn't shut them up, a father who invited them to the table, a father who listened to them, who talked to them. That is why I'm concerned as an African woman, because there are some traditions in Africa where men and women don't sit together. So you don't have the opportunity to have any relationship with your dad. The dad doesn't talk to you. So what are we losing there? We need a lot of research, fact-finding, to find out what is it that we lose when we don't have that kind of relationship with our father. So for me personally, my dad did a lot. I come from a typical Yao tradition where most of these harmful traditions exist. But I had a father that protected me. And he was living 15 kilometers from the village. And our tradition demands that I should be brought up by my grandmother. But my father put his foot down and took me to town against my grandmother's wishes. And that's why I'm here.
Wow, wonderful. I know there will be questions. Let's go ahead, just raise your hands. We have one over here and one here. Yes, go ahead. And there's a microphone here.
The women who are here from Africa had said the laws are there, but FGM is still happening, and they're not getting prosecuted. And the scholar here from Nepal said that there are laws against isolating girls during the time, and women during the time they have their period. This is still happening, and they're treated very badly. How do you make sure that the laws are enforced? Because you said we need to enforce them. But how do you make sure that that happens? Because right now, in the countries where the scholars were coming from this year, they're not being enforced.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I truly believe that what has happened in Ghana and Burkina Faso should be a good example. Perhaps I could ask Priscilla, can you talk a little bit about what has happened in Ghana and Burkina Faso? Because we were just doing that exercise this past week.
And Christina, please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name
She's
is
my assistant, sorry.
My name is Priscilla Japon. I am Joyce Banda's research assistant at CGD. So actually speaking about laws is something we address in our upcoming essay. So in Burkina Faso, I believe since 1978, there's been a lot of advocacy work on FGM. And the government was kind of slow to act to pass a law. I can't quite get the dates right. But we did data comparison work at CGDS to create a Burkina Faso without an FGM law and a Burkina Faso to compare it to the real Burkina Faso with the law. And we found that the law may have prevented 200,000 women and girls from being cut. The reason was not because the law existed, but because civil society and nonprofits use the law as a reference point for the government that, hey, this is something you said you would do. So I think a lot of the work came from people who are not the government. The government also set up a hotline for women and girls who were under threat of being cut. So there was commitment beyond just vocalizing that, oh, here, we have a law. So the law as an accountability reference point, the hotline, and also NGOs' work being institutionalized with the government's own efforts kind of led to this statistically proven result. In Ghana, with Trokoshi, as President Banda mentioned, with a system of slavery for young girls, the government itself didn't do much to enforce the law or prosecute people, but the way that the law was functional was that a local nonprofit used the law as a reference point to speak to UNICEF that, hey, our government has this law, it's not able to enforce it, give us money and we can use that money to bargain, basically trade for the girls back. So with the money that the nonprofit had, instead of arresting the shrines and the priest, because that would cause people to go underground, they used the money as a quid pro quo to the shrines that, okay, you're keeping these girls because you want free labor, you're keeping these girls because you get cows and goats from their families as appeasement. So here is $20 and give us the girl back. And remarkably, that was effective. But again, because the local nonprofit had a reference point to justify to external partners the need for financial support and resources.
Great, that's a great example. Thank you. Other questions? We have one here.
Chris McRae, could I ask you a little bit more about Think Equal? What I'd like to know is any of it online and completely open source? The reason being that I work with satellite learning companies and we've been going through all the online open source material and there's nothing on girls' rights. So we can distribute things to 300,000 children at the same time. We're signing a contract in that on Friday in Kenya. But if there's no content, we can't get it out there. So that's why I ask.
Yeah, if you Google, it's easy, it's online. If there's a lot of information on internet right now. If you just Google, Think Equal.
Yeah, but I mean, sorry. I mean actual learning modules. It doesn't have to be very large. It could be 1 4-minute
Yes,
thing.
they
which
have
is
that
sort
as well.
So
You will
there's-
find that.
Okay, I'll look at it.
You
Thank you.
look it up, because it's coming up now. This is all in the last 6 months.
I mean, one reason I'm a bit confused is that Intel are the people who have researched what is completely online, and so far they haven't found it. But I'll have a look and send it to them
Then
if
I
I can
think you
find
better
it.
get a card from Priscilla. We will send that to you.
Thank you.
One last question here. Go ahead, and then
Thanks. Linda Hebert with World Vision. I was wondering if you could comment on the role of local faith-based organizations in ensuring safety, development, and empowerment of girls.
I got one disappointing incident in Malawi that I hesitate sometimes to work with faith. So 2 examples. One example is in my area, in my tribe, where 9-year-olds go for initiation. And the church, when the church came to, the Church of Scotland came to establish a church in Malawi, one harmful tradition that they wanted stopped, banned, was the initiation of girls at that early age. They negotiated with the chief, but the chief had was motivated by the money you give. Because when you take your child to the bush, you go and give money to take leave of the chief, that you are going to the bush for 7 days. When you come back, you go back and give the money to the chief to say, I brought my child back safely. That is what he didn't want to lose. So they compromised. They decided, the church asked if they could take over this program and do the initiation in the church. So the girls still go. They start by hymns and the prayers. And in the end, the chief gets his money. When they come back, he gets his money, so he has nothing to lose. But the girl child has not been traumatized, has not been scarred. So that's one positive example. But one that really hurt me was where a woman went to her village because her baby had epilepsy, and they told, she agreed with her husband, the only way would be for her to go to her village 8 hours away to get treatment. So that would mean her staying there for a year. An 8-year-old girl child remained with the father. And she told me herself, she came to my office and said, Joyce Banda, can you send me to school? I said, why? I only adopt orphans because that's what I can afford. She says, no, I have both parents, but my father has said he will never educate me because I've exposed him. What happened? When my mother was away, he came in my room and he said he was looking for money. And I got up to try to help him look for the money. He says, you don't understand, the money is you. A witch doctor has told me that if I sleep with you, my baba shall prosper. So he raped me for the whole entire time my mom was away. And he told me that it had been agreed between him and my mom. And she was 8 years old. So when the mother came back, the daughter confronted the mother. Mommy, how could you have, look, and by then she had wounds and so on. The mother said, I don't know what you're talking about. So the mother went to the church, their church, believing that their reverend, their pastor, We'll do something about the situation. We'll go to the police, but we'll take up the matter because in Malawi we are very religious. It was the faith leader who told this woman to say, this happens to a lot of women. If you open your mouth and expose our church elder, you will be excommunicated. So the woman then was helpless. So this child overheard all this conversation from the mother telling somebody else. That's when she ran to my office, and I was then Minister of Women and Children. And I called her, and I told her that Television Malawi is on its way here. And you will have to say whatever has happened to this child on TV. She said, Mom, I'm just so tired, I'm so happy. If my own church failed to help me, maybe the nation will help me. By that time, I was trying to lobby to have the domestic violence bill passed in Parliament. This was a perfect example of domestic violence. So anyway, in the end, it was exposed nationwide, and he was finally arrested. But after the church had disappointed her.
We have to, that's a really tragic story. We have to close.
I am sorry that I have depressed you, but if
But
we are
it's-
going to tackle 10 to 14, we have to tackle 0 to 10.
Yeah, we have to close. And what, just one final parting thought, President Banda, for all of us as we start in on the day-to-day, and everybody in this room is working in some way or another to advance children's education around the world, particularly girls' education. What would be your final parting advice for all of us?
I think my final parting advice would be that it can be done. We can empower girls, and we can build leaders. And that what we need most in the world are women leaders, female leaders, sitting at the policy formulating table, side by side with our men. And there will be nothing about us as women without us. And if we allow ourselves to be the followers and not get at that table, then we are going to remain on the menu forever.
Thank you so much. Warm applause.